Hi there, guys and girls. Wow, we got some big news. This video has been a couple of days coming. I wanted to sort of think about what I wanted to say in regards to Dan Forden retiring from NetherRealm Studios. Well, not retiring. I just, he left NetherRealm Studios. And it's kind of big for me because the Mortal Kombat music was, as someone who's been around for the whole thing, right? It's always been a big part of the game. Like, the first game had those great cool tunes, the drums, the dun 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 dun, and then MK2 lifted that bar again with just some crazy outlaw tunes, and it had a great sound. MK2, I always say it, MK2, something about MK2, it just sounds great. Like, it sounds aesthetically, it's like ASMR for me, I guess. MK2. So many great varying tunes in Mortal Kombat 2, like action tunes, more mysterious tunes like the Pit, the Wastelands, the Deadpool, then you got like a Portal tune, which is a bit more hectic. Shao Kahn's Arena, same tune. The air combat with the cloud. So, that's just MK1, 2, and this just went on. MK3 was urban. The first thing I will tell you, the first thing I heard about Mortal Kombat 3 when it came out was my cousin came up to me and said, "Did you hear Mortal Kombat 3's in the city?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, yeah, my friends were playing it. And she said, you fight in a train station, and the music's real pump it, she said something like that, along those lines. The first comment was about the music being so energetic and urban and a different spin on MK, because it goes to the Earthrealm, right? That was literally the first thing I heard about MK3. After someone had played it here in Australia. And remember, around this time we're starting to get the internet, right? So it's becoming around the time where information's suddenly globally accessible. You don't have to wait till you hear about something. So Dan's music, and that's just the music. His audio design made a big impression on the game. He is one of the founding fathers of Mortal Kombat. There are 4 people, Dan Forden, John Tobias, Ed Boon, and John Vogel, and they're the OG team, and Tobias left in sort of in between MK4 and Special Forces or something, and this is the second guy to lead. This is these guys love MK. They stuck with it. I love the loyalty to the brand. That's something that's always attracted me to Mortal Kombat, is the loyalty from the OG creators. And I'm not saying that as a diss against Dan, because he's been there 37 years. 37 years giving us sound and music and that stuff is very important. As someone who worked in the arcades, anybody who knows, you guys know now because you got MAME, but you go into the settings and you got your attract mode setting. It's very important. Sound is how you sold the game in the arcades. That's how you got someone to put their dollar coin in, or quarter in America, right? So the sound would have to grab you, bring you over, attract mode, get you to play the game, So sound is equally as important as programming, graphics, the look, the gore, the thematic, the character designs, the mythology. It's all important. And that's what draws me to Mortal Kombat, is that those 4 guys all had something to do on the team, and they all did it, and they all did it really well, and it shows. That's why the brand is so strong, and that's why it stayed around so long, and it's still going. But it's sad now because there are things that I wanted, and this is kind of selfish to say, but as a fan, there are things that I wanted from upcoming MKs, and as critical as I am about the last game, I always try and say, well, maybe they'll fix it in the next game. Well, maybe they'll fix it in the next game. Do you know what I mean? And one of those things was wanting to just hear select screen music again when you go to this character select screen, and hoping to God that they would get Dan back. Like something would change and they go, TotalMK's right, you know, and make a select screen in the next game. I get Dan back. I'll get Dan to do the music for it and get something along the lines of like, you know, the Deadly Alliance select screen, because that was big. That was their first game in the home market. That tune had to be good, and it was. It's such a fucking banger. The Deadly Alliance select screen, the Deception select screen. Oh, those things are like genius level sounding, get you into the game, you know. And those wishes are now gone. You know, I won't get that anymore. And that's something I'm just going to have to accept, you know. I always, as critical as I am with Mortal Kombat, like, you know, there's always a reason for it. I'm not just being, you know, that's why I get annoyed when people say he's a hater. You know, I'm not. You know, the fact is that I've been promoting and living my whole life around Mortal Kombat. If I was a hater, that would be true. I'd just fucking, I'd just leave. I don't know, become a Street Fighter fan or Tekken or something. You know what I mean? That's not me. For me, it's MK. Like, it's like blood for me. Do you know what I mean? And even when I'm really pissed off at it, you know, I don't really play that MK1. I just don't like it. You know, but I still have faith in the brand that hopefully the next one will be better. You know? That's something that they don't tell you with the TotalMK haters. They don't say, well, he does wish that the game still, you know, gets better next time around. They don't say that. They just say, he's a hater. You know? And I'm not making this about me, but I'm just saying this is what it's like, you know. And as someone, yeah, who wanted to hear, you know, Dan's tunes one more time, select screen, some of the arenas, unfortunately that won't happen. I think someone posted on Twitter, they said Dan's last tune in MK1 was that Treasure Chamber, which I don't think I knew about. I don't think I knew that he did the tune, but it makes sense because I remember there was one time when I was playing MK1. I don't remember if I was streaming or not. I was playing it and I could hear the music and I went, this music's pretty good. Now I know why. and it's no diss to the guys that do the other tunes. I just think it's a different style, a modern style. And I feel like audio's overly engineered now to be like surround sound and weird and like all over the place and fucking, I don't know. I just think the old way, the stereo, here's the tune, bang, it's just in your face. I think I'm more accustomed to that, whereas this music seems to take a background. It's, you know, it's a bit more in, you know, a bit harder to pick up. It's not as dynamic, you know, so there's that. And the other thing about Dan leaving is that I always, and this might sound stupid, I always had hope that we would get a music collection one day. I thought we would. I thought if people kept asking for it enough, that they would release. And this, especially since those records, those, who sold me in? Enjoy the Ride. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking in the cupboard. I've got the records in the cupboard. They made those vinyl records of MK1 and 2 and MK4, and they had all the different coloured records and, you know, vinyl, whatever you want to call it. Right? I thought that might start something, and I was hoping that one day, you know what I was hoping for? Like a book that you open, and there's like 10 CDs in there, and it's like MK1 and 2, MK3 and 4, Deadly Alliance and Deception, Armageddon and Challenge, you know what I mean? And there was a soundtrack for each game, Mythology Sub-Zero, do you know what I mean? I was hoping for something like that. I always thought that might happen. And Dan actually did remaster some of his music and put it up on the internet. on iTunes and stuff at some stage, but some of the older stuff. But we never got like something like that, and it would have been so great to have like an audio collection. And I don't know if we can now that he's left, because I believe they'd have to pay him separately. He doesn't work for the company anymore. I don't know. It's all weird now. I don't know how it all works, you know. And here's the other thing that hit me too. The other thing that hit me is that toasty, crispy, frosty, you know, all the things that Dad used to say. That's right, he had 3 things, not just toasty. It wasn't whoopsie. Some people think it's whoopsie. It's toasty, frosty, and crispy, depending on which game you're playing. But the other thing is that, you know, we saw Dan in MK1. He was the guy in the dead body at the top of the pit. You only see it quickly. Because you hit someone down the pit, they fall quickly. They fall past. And that body's only up the top of one of the poles and stuck to the pole. And you see it real quick. And then it falls down. And you see all the heads and everything. You see everyone else at the bottom. Dan, you only see for a quick second. The only way to see him properly is if you, A, extract the asset from the game. Or B, you get that secret game over ending that does a slow pan. And then you see Dan. And that's when I saw it. I went, that's Mr. Forden. And you might have noticed that I put that on the thumbnail of this video. Up the top. So yeah, Dan was in MK1. Visually, he's one of the dead guys. Hanging upside down, you know. And then in MK2, we had Toasty. In MK3, we had Toasty again. And in MK2, there was also a picture at the end. If you beat the game in under 4 credits or less, 5 credits or less, you got the picture of Ed Boon, John Vogel, John Tobias, and Dan Forden. And then in MK3, you got the Toasty, and you had the end screen that had the picture of him as well. And same in MK4, you had that same silhouette picture. I put all of them on the thumbnail along the bottom. And there was also the MK9 one where they brought back Toasty, where he had the shirt with the toast on it, which was peak MK. And it hit me that even the games that he wasn't visually in, they hid like Toasty like in the background or in Conquest mode or something. Toasty was always in there somewhere, do you know what I mean? Like, I think in Deadly Alliance, for example, when you're doing Test Your Might or Test Your Sight, you hear in the crowd, once you fail, you can hear a Toasty if you listen carefully. I've heard it before in the crowd. You know, so they did things like that. But it hit me that now we won't have Toasty. I don't think it can be in the game anymore. Because unless Warner Brothers has claimed that they own the picture of Dan Forden, which I don't think they could do because it's a photo of someone, I don't think we'll ever see Toasty in the game again. You know? We won't hear it and we won't see it. And that's part of MK gone. You know, and that's really sad because it's always been there for me. You know, most people know it from MK2, but like I said, MK1, you had that dead body asset. It started there, you know, and that's it, you know. I'm gonna open this beer and drink to Dan. You know, 37 years of excellence. Now let me tell you, I met Dan twice, and both times I could have spoke to him for hours. He's just such a nice guy. And I remember at E3 2006, I was kind of intimidated meeting all the Mortal Kombat guys the first time. But they were all so cool. Ed Boon was cool. You know, John Edwards was cool. Steve Baran was cool. Sean Emmerich was cool. Everybody was cool. But everybody had a different personality and stories to tell. And I spoke to Dan for a long time about audio, you know. I said that I loved all the nuances in Ultimate MK3 on the title screen when it's just playing the theme. And you can hear like screams in the background, really subtle. You can hear like bells and like really subtle things, and you know, we were talking about that stuff and he was telling me everything, or we're just talking heaps about sound. I don't even remember the conversation, to be honest. My memory's not that great these days. I remember little bits and pieces, but you know, I spoke to Dan for a long time about sound, and we started talking about Shaolin monks. Oh, I think he asked. I think a couple of people on the team back then asked if I had a suggestion for content for the game, and I said, "You got to let us see like," because I knew Ed Boon did get over here at this stage. I said, "You got to let us see like Ed Boon like doing get over here or something, or let us see some of the sound recording. We've never seen it, you know." And I take credit for that because that became a video in Mortal Kombat Armageddon inside the sound room. And that was my suggestion. I don't know if they listened to me. I don't know if other people did it. I don't know if they were going to do it anyway. I don't know. But I suggested it, and then it was in the game. So, you know. But he mentioned the Shaolin Monk stuff. He mentioned, oh, you should have seen how great it was when Ed was doing, like, the get the fuck over here and the get over here, bitch. You know, and I'm like, what? You know, and he told me about these sounds, and he goes, yeah, we recorded these alternate like takes of like Ed saying get over here. He goes, I can't remember if he said they were in the game or not in the game, or I think he said they weren't in the game, and I'll tell you why in a second. And because I'm sure he said they weren't in the game. I went, is there any way I could get those sounds and put them on my website? That would be like amazing. People would love to hear that, right? And he opens his wallet up and he gives me his business card. It's the only Midway business card I've got. And that was like, my mind was like, at that moment. Like, it's like a nothing thing. Like, this is just normal for PR, for people to get business cards. But like, for me, this was like an oh my God moment. You know, where he gave me, and you can see how I keep it in this case with the asset disc from that show, his business card. I had the Toasty guy's business card. It sounds so stupid. I know. But it was such a cool moment for me. I'm not going to lie. You know, I'm like, damn, he trusts me with this. You know, and he said, just make sure you don't, make sure you tag PR, because when you're working, if you guys don't know, if you're working with a company, they don't like it if you just suddenly start emailing people directly and not keeping PR in the loop. PR wants to know what you're saying, what you're asking for as well. So if you ask for something absurd, they can stop you, sort of thing, which is fair enough. They got a lot of money invested in the game and stuff. But I mean, this has, you know, I've never even looked at this properly, this card. It had his direct phone number on it, his fax number, his mobile number, and his email address. You know? And, you know, I did. I sent the email, I tagged in PR, and I asked for the sounds, and I got told no. And I was like, shit. Yeah, I got told no on that one. They said I couldn't have them. And I tried begging. I've begged twice to Midway for things. One was that, and the second thing was the Armageddon mugshots. I got those though, so 1 for 2, you know. But yeah, I didn't get those. PR said I couldn't have them, and I was like, fuck. And then when I found out, I found a program that scanned the Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks files for sounds. I'm like, I wonder if it's in there, and they just left it in there and forgot about it. So I sat there, set it up, scanned it. I don't know, 4,500, 5,000 sounds. Press play, and it just starts going through the list, playing every sound. And I just laid there on my bed one day, laid there, until I got to like the speech of the game, because the program I was using, it couldn't. Just gonna spray that moth. It couldn't find separate files, which were probably organized. It just found WAV files and just made a big list of one big list. That's it. So I couldn't sort it. I had to just sit there until it got to the sound. And then, yeah, here, get over here, come here. Get the fuck over here. Get over here, bitch. And I'm like, I jump off the bed. Stop. Save the files. I was like, yes. I didn't tell PR. They probably saw it on my website though. I just put it up on my website. You know, that's my Dan Forden story. You know, just he was so cool. He was the coolest. You know, when I met NetherRealm in 2010, before I was on the naughty list, a lot of the guys gave me business cards too. That was really epic. I got Steve Baran's business card, Brian Goodman's, Hans Lowe's. I got 5. Hector Sanchez, and who am I missing? Who was the other one? Should be here. Oh, there they are. On top. Hector Sanchez, Hans Lowe, Brian Goodman. Oh, Paulo Garcia, of course. Of course, Paulo. Yep. You know, that was really cool. I've always treasured those. You know, I've never emailed anybody other than Dan Forden because we arranged that. I've never bothered anybody with their personal information, but you know, that was so cool of Dan to give me his card and say, hey, you know, let's see if we can, you know, organise it with PR and get the sounds out. He gave me that chance. He could have just not, you know, and it was so great. And then I met him again in 2017, and here's the thing, is that Combat Con in 2017 was an amazing time of my life. And you just don't know what you've got till it's gone. I'm always the sort of guy that if I like an event, I'll go back, like I'm doing PAX coming up. You know, I've done every PAX because I think it's a great event. You know, and when I was at this Combat Con, I couldn't believe it. I was there with almost every actor was there. Almost, right? And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is like my dream to meet like so many to meet Kano, to meet Rich DeVizio, to meet Daniel Pazina and Carlos Pazina and Elizabeth Malecki and Kerry Hoskins and Leah Montalongo and, you know, Brian Glynn and, you know, what's his name? Overload. You know, who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting heaps of people. Catalan Zamia, John Parrish, you know, Sub-Zero. I'm having trouble remembering names. You know, Sal Davida. You know, anyway, this show was just amazing, meeting all these people. And I had hopes for that show where I wanted to get everything signed and I wanted to interview everybody. Unfortunately, that did not happen. It was a long time to get things autographed and signed. And by the time I'd done it all, the show was over, basically, or some people had left. And, you know, Joss Sway was another one. It was at the show. And Dan Forden was there and John Bogle was there, you know, and it was cool, man. It was very, very cool, you know, and I got to speak to Dan again. I didn't speak to him for a long time. I said, how's it going, you know? I asked him to do the little Toasty gag video for me, you know, because I knew he couldn't talk about Mortal Kombat, so I didn't ask him about Mortal Kombat. I knew he would say, I can't talk about Mortal Kombat, basically. Gordon, what do you say about life in general?
Life in general, I say, TOASTY!
You know, because he works at NetherRealm, and this was sort of, I think this was outside their purview, this show. You know, but it was great. I talked to him again, and he did he said Toasty for me on video, and that was cool, you know, and that was the last time I saw Dan, and that feels like yesterday, but that was 8 years ago, you know, and, you know, I always clung to the hope there'd be another Combat Con, and, you know, I'm the sort of guy that has these wild dreams of like a Mortal Kombat convention where everybody's there, like every single person. Do you know what I mean? Like Ed's there, and all the NetherRealm guys are there, and all the actors are there, and all the Sonyas are there, and all the Jaxes are there, or whatever, right? But unfortunately, in the real world, that just can't happen sometimes. You know, there's personal differences, there's problems. You know, there's some troublemakers in the some of the old Mortal Kombat stuff. One guy in particular, a bit of a troublemaker. You know, had a really small role in the game and made some wild claims in 2017 after I came back to Australia after Combat Con about the dragon logo and stuff, and it really made me mad. He was selling art in really bad artwork to fans and taking advantage of fans, you know, and something I always try and get my info right. I do, as I know I've made a lot of mistakes, but I always do try to get my info right. Sometimes I remember something wrong or whatever. I'm getting old. Remember, I'm almost 50, guys. You know, so, but this guy came out and claimed he came up with the dragon logo and just nonsense. You know, we know Tobias did that all, you know. So, I'm not that guy's biggest fan, I'll be honest. But everybody else is alright, to a degree. Everybody's different, you know, but I always had hopes of something like that one day. A room where every single Mortal Kombat staff member, old and new, actors, everybody's there. Everyone puts their differences aside, makes some money, get lots of autographs from the fans. Autograph stuff for the fans. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, that won't happen. You know, but it was so cool that Dan came to the show. It was cool that John Vogel came to the show and other people came to the show from NetherRealm. Not many NetherRealm people were there. You know, and it was just great that they gave their time and came. And for the fans, remember, it's not always about corporations and money and greed. You know, that's part of it. But to see that commitment from staff members like Dan Forden and John Vogel and all the actors to come out for the fans. And, you know, they make their money too, don't get me wrong. But to see that commitment was great. Because money is shit to me, to quote Die Hard 3. I wouldn't give up McLean for all the gold in your Fort Knox. Do you know what I mean? Money comes and goes. You know what I mean? I've never had an abundance of money. You know what I mean? In fact, that Chicago trip, I was lucky. I had all this built up tax that I had to do, and I got this massive tax return. And then Combat Con was coming up, and I went, all right, you know, things happen for a reason, and that's how I was able to go, because I had like $5,000. You know, I don't normally have that sort of money. You know, it comes and goes with me, so that's how I got there. You know, and no, it was great. Once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, I got to see Dan again. I should have asked for his NetherRealm card. Then I could have put it with the other NetherRealm cards. Damn, I didn't think of that. But I'm really gonna miss Dan Forden. But you know, I hope he's gonna go on to do some stuff that he wants to do. He's gonna go. I don't know if he's gonna retire or anything, but I think he said there's stuff coming soon, and you know, on to, you know, a new journey for him, you know. And I've even been shared stuff behind the scenes with Dan, playing some like Mortal Kombat tunes, like with a garage band, but I promised I'd never share this video, so I have to keep that promise. And it was so great to see it, though. To see Dan playing the Portal, like on a guitar, you know. And yeah, I don't know what Mortal Kombat's going to be like without Mr. Forden, you know, but Godspeed to you, Dan. Thank you for all the tunes and all the sounds and all the hilarious toasty stuff and frosty and crispy, you know, and having to correct people when they think that the amount of people that think you were saying whoopsie. They think you're saying whoopsie. I don't know why. Whoopsie! It's not a whoopsie, it's a toasty. When you correct people, they're like, oh, I thought it was whoopsie. You know? But I wanted to just do this video because, you know, it's going to be sad. No more Toasty in the game. No more guy in the corner. And, you know, we're going to have a new audio person doing the sounds, I guess. And we've lost part of the OG team. But, you know, like I said, I can't be selfish. I can't shade him up just because I want Mortal Kombat stuff. You know, so I have to let him be free, like a bird. I can't keep him in the cage. I got to let him be free. He's got to be free to do what he wants to do. So, again, cheers to you, Dan. Thanks for everything. You're an absolute legend. And thanks for watching another video, guys. Peace out.
This is Ken Forden from Mortal Kombat fame.
Dan shows you cool stuff every couple of days. He just comes in and you go, great, this is awesome.
And he's a lot like Ed, where I just have this confidence that, you know, he's going to go away and come back with something spectacular.